Hello again. I'm Cornelius Troost, the author of Apes or Angels, and this is segment number 7. And I'd like to talk about the ongoing issue of nature versus nurture, which I told you was controlled for the most part by the nurture-oriented group called environmentalists in the genetic sense versus genetics. And these people have essentially won the popularity contest in the sense that they have inculcated the general population with the idea that equality is so important that we must believe in it as a mythology. That is the belief that regardless of what genetics says, we are all equal is a dominant theme in American life and throughout Europe as well. And this is profoundly influenced in a reciprocal way with politics. The two interact in a very intimate and complex way and reinforce each other. And thus, people who are now on the side of nature, that is, the interpreting differences in a genetic sense, in line with Darwinian biology, these people are essentially in a minority. They are housed in university anthropology and genetics departments. And they occasionally write in a popular vein and spread the word, but nonetheless they are up against a massive mythology that favors the blank slate idea and the idea of equality sort of built into us, which cannot be overcome, according to the mythology, by almost any kind of effort. The truth is otherwise, and genetics is unraveling and revealing this truth gradually and in a very powerful way. However, regardless of how powerfully they reveal genetic facts, genetic ideas, they are still up against it historically because of this great headwind that came out of the 60s and which is carrying everything forward in a very biased way. So any talk of inequality is up against this a basic taboo that essentially considers it out of bounds. So we're faced with a problem in several senses. One is that it's possible that an Obama victory, although I've never mentioned Obama in my book at all, there was no reason to, but looking towards the possible victory by him in November of '08, the problem arises that he is emotionally bound up in environmentalism, like a lot of others, and liberal politics, extremely liberal politics. And that perspective could lead him to do some very interesting things in government. Of course, in terms of expanding the budget and expenditures, this is almost inevitable with the ideas that he's set forth. But in terms of science, he could very well want to manipulate the field of genetics so that research done on human differences could be actually, under his jurisdiction, a dangerous activity. It could literally be suppressed politically by a threatening tone by grant administrators in the government who dole out hundreds of millions annually in terms of science grants across the board, and which could be very difficult to get in the field of genetics. So the political dangers are there because of Obama's perspective, which is strongly environmentalist. He doesn't even entertain the thought that human differences could be genetic, nor does he have much interest in that, I would imagine. So the social scientist perspective, which is strongly environmentalist, will be reinforced by the government in the future if I'm right about this. I hope I'm dead wrong, but it doesn't look good. Already the Human Genome Project itself is led by a gentleman who is constantly putting down any results that threaten the idea of equality. I'll give you an example. Bruce Lahn, L-A-H-N, professor of human genetics at the University of Chicago, made a great discovery, he and his students, throughout 2004 and 2005. They did research on the human genome, which revealed two interesting genes. One called microcephalin, which seems to have arisen and become increasingly abundant after 37,000 years ago, which is an interesting time and well within the period of the diaspora of humankind from Africa, spreading out all over Europe and Asia and the Americas. The last 50,000 years, in other words, well within that period. The appearance of microcephalin and its counterpart, the younger gene, the one that appeared about 5,800 years ago, which is called ASPM. These two genes are brain builders, apparently, because the defective versions of these two genes produce the same basic condition called microcephaly, which used to be called the pinhead disorder, but of course you would never see that kind of wording in a psych book today for obvious reasons. It's politically incorrect. But the pinhead tells you essentially what is going on. That is that the brain is, and the cranium are reduced in size, and severe retardation results. Thus, we don't know positively what these two genes do in terms of exact cognitive abilities that are produced by them. But the two genes that Bruce Lahn and the students discovered are found in the case of microcephalin. It's found all over the world except in sub-Saharan Africa, where there's only a few cases of it. ASPN is found in a more limited area over Europe and parts of Asia, but there are whole sub-Saharan Africa and other parts of the world lack ASPN because it's so young. It's still apparently spreading due to selective pressure. What kind of advantage is the result of these two brain-building genes, whether they have a direct bearing on IQ or like memory or other cognitive qualities, we don't know exactly. This is being worked out right now. The actual ways in which phenotype is influenced by these two very powerful brain builders is being worked out, will be spelled out in detail, I'm sure, in the next few years, providing that that kind of research continues. Bruce Lahn was quietly threatened in a nice way, and he has basically withdrawn from this kind of research because by finding genes that directly bear on significant racial differences, and they're very significant, highly significant, he is treading in a very dangerous territory. He has backed off from this and quieted down, and there will be ongoing research, we hope, that will reveal significant differences that certainly are to be expected from the absence of these genes in certain parts of the world. Thank you very much.